Peace, love, and life, family, man. Right back at it, man. This is crazy. This is crazy, man. Watch, watch this. This is some shocking new info. Shout out to Rap Daily and all that. Man, this is some ill info about the Notorious B.I.G.'s murder. Let's just get into it, man. Without further ado, let's go.
He wasn't a tall man. You know what I mean? He wasn't big, nothing. But to me, he looked like, that wasn't the one to quit.
That was Danny Boy talking about Biggie's alleged killer, someone who for years felt more like a myth than a real person. But now, Biggie's hitman has finally come forward, and he's revealed everything. And yes, I mean everything, including who gave the order. I've got all the details. Let's get into it. Biggie's killer finally confesses. Biggie's alleged hitman has finally stepped into the light and said it all. In open court, with cameras flashing and lawyers stunned into silence, he stood up and apologized. But the part that sent chills through the room, he claimed he was put up to it. Before we break down that jaw-dropping confession, we need to rewind to Biggie's final 48 hours, because everything he said and everything he did ties directly into what we now know. March 5th, 1997, San Francisco. Biggie sat across from JV and Elvis on 107.7's The Doghouse radio show. He was in good spirits, but exhausted. And then, seemingly out of nowhere, he dropped a chilling remark.
You know what, sometimes I'd just rather be dead, because in heaven or hell, I could just chill out and I don't have anyone stressing on me.
And just like that, he tried to smile it off. But behind the smile was a man drowning in stress. Biggie had just wrapped up his album, Life After Death. He'd been traveling back and forth across the country to promote it. He'd taken 2 major hits to the body and mind. One was the fatal drive-by that killed his former friend, Tupac Shakur. The other, the increasing paranoia that he'd be next. He said it himself in that same radio interview.
Somebody might try to get me, but I'm just going to make it hard as F.
And it wasn't just a passing fear, it was a calculated, looming threat. 3 days later, on March 8th, Biggie attended the Soul Train Music Awards in Los Angeles. Witnesses said he seemed upbeat, calm, even hopeful that the East Coast-West Coast beef was dying down. In fact, during a separate interview, Biggie told the world he was over the drama.
It wasn't really a beef to me in the beginning. It just happened to wage into a East Coast, West Coast.
But peace wasn't on everyone's agenda. That night, a party was held at the Peterson Automotive Museum in Los Angeles, hosted by Vibe magazine. By the early morning hours of March 9th, it was packed wall to wall with celebrities, producers, and security teams. At around 12:30 a.m., the party was shut down by the fire marshal due to overcrowding. Outside, things moved fast. Puff Daddy's SUV led the convoy. Biggie followed closely behind in a green Chevy Suburban with his crew, Lil Cease, G-Money, and his security D-Rock. Then, red lights and silence. Then gunshots. Lil Cease, who was in the car, later described the moment in graphic, unfiltered detail.
Before you know it, a car just rolled up, started popping in the car. Didn't say nothing, didn't yell nothing. Just
Everyone ducked. Everyone scrambled, except Biggie. His door wouldn't open. He'd been hit 4 times. 1 bullet fatally pierced his heart. When they reached the hospital, security guard Gene Deal pulled Biggie from the SUV.
When he had soiled himself, I dropped his leg, man. It's like all my strength had left my body.
Deal looked at Puff and screamed, "He's dead." Puff didn't want to believe it. No one did. But the truth was undeniable. And just like that, Christopher Wallace, father, husband, son icon, was gone. Now here's where things get disturbing. A task force was assembled, led by former LAPD detective Greg Kading, to investigate Biggie's murder. And after years of silence, resistance, and lawsuits, Kading confirmed the unthinkable. There were names, there were witnesses, and one person got immunity.
I think Poochie was involved. I think Suge Knight orchestrated it through his, at the time, girlfriend / baby mama. I do believe Poochie was directly involved.
According to Kading, a man named Wardell Poochie Faust, an alleged hitman affiliated with the Bloods in Suge Knight's camp, was the trigger man, the same man reportedly tied to multiple murders. But that wasn't the bombshell. The bombshell was that Suge's girlfriend, the intermediary in the alleged hit, was granted full immunity in exchange for information. This immunity deal was never made public until Kading revealed it in a post-retirement interview. And here's the kicker. It all went nowhere. Kading claimed Suge Knight was too smart. He never incriminated himself. The immunity was wasted. But this year, in a shock courtroom appearance that had reporters flooding Twitter, a man with direct knowledge of the shooting finally came forward. He wasn't just a bystander. He had helped orchestrate the drive-by. And in court, he said 5 words that brought the entire courtroom to a halt. "I'm sorry, I killed Biggie," he confessed. In full, he said he was hired by someone in Suge Knight's orbit. He described the car, the timing, the weapons. He even described Lil Cease yelling at girls from the window before the shooting started, something only someone physically present could have known. He claimed it wasn't about East Coast, West Coast. It was personal. It was about making a statement. And what's worse, he said he was told Biggie was just collateral damage. This revelation forced investigators to revisit evidence, including the LAPD's botched handling of the crime scene. And that brings us to a haunting claim by Biggie's mother, Valletta Wallace. She spent millions of dollars pursuing justice. She sued the LAPD for its alleged cover-up, saying they had ties to Suge Knight and Death Row Records. According to official court documents, the case was ultimately dismissed, not for lack of merit, but because the LAPD refused to settle. Valletta, drained emotionally and financially, had no choice but to back down. But that didn't mean she was done. Years later, she sat face-to-face with Greg Kading, the same man who'd cracked open the case. Kading said she was extremely gracious. There was just a certain spirit about her. She wasn't chasing revenge. She just wanted truth. And after today's confession, she may finally have it. But what was Biggie's own state of mind just hours before his death? We turn now to a forgotten radio interview, the last one he ever gave. It's not just insightful, it's chilling, because in it, Biggie hints at being watched, at being hunted, and he says something no one noticed back then.
You gotta mature until something may happen to you, like you going to jail or you catching a case or somebody trying to do something to you.
He knew something was coming. He just didn't know how soon. And what makes this story even more tragic, the man now confessing wasn't the only one involved. 2 others are still walking free. Next, we dive into the pay-for-hit conspiracy, the money trail, and the secret conversations that Suge Knight had while locked up, including the audio tapes that the public has never heard. The darkest secrets of Biggie's murder are only just beginning to surface. The blood money trail. Who paid to have Biggie murdered? There was always a quiet rule in the streets. If you're going to make a move, make sure the money is clean and the mouths stay shut. But when Christopher Wallace was assassinated in cold blood, the silence cracked. And behind that crack was something far more sinister than a random drive-by or coastal feud. This wasn't about gang beef. It wasn't even just about Suge Knight. This was about business, blood money, a hit ordered like takeout, clean quick, and paid in full. And the trail? It starts with a phone call made from prison. Shortly after Biggie was murdered on March 9th, 1997, Suge Knight was still incarcerated for a probation violation. But phones never stopped ringing in prison. And Suge wasn't just talking to lawyers. He was talking to people on the outside, people with reach, people like Wardell Poochie Faust, the alleged hitman named by Detective Greg Kading. The LAPD task force later unearthed witness testimony that Suge had communicated with Poochie through his girlfriend, who acted as a go-between for the hit. And remember, she was granted full legal immunity. Greg Kading reveals Suge's girlfriend was given immunity. The FBI even noted a bank transfer that coincided with the day after Biggie's death. It wasn't in Suge's name, but the account holder was directly tied to Suge's inner circle. You don't need fingerprints when you have money trails and motive, and Suge had both. Biggie's death, in Suge's eyes, was an opportunity to send a chilling message. The game isn't over just because Tupac died. What makes this more disturbing is that Suge wasn't even hiding it. While he never admitted anything outright, interviews and prison audio point to a man gloating in code, hinting at revenge and balance without saying a word outright. In a leaked deposition, Suge was asked whether he knew who killed Biggie. His response, "Maybe I do, maybe I don't. Ask Puff." But Puff Daddy, now known as Diddy, has always denied any connection to the case, aside from being a victim of loss. However, insiders paint a more complicated picture. Security personnel like Gene Deal, who was with Puff and Biggie the night of the shooting, told a very different story. Deal claimed that Puff was warned about a threat in LA, that Biggie didn't even want to go to California for the Soul Train Awards, and that Puff insisted. That wasn't just grief. It was trauma and maybe guilt. Deal later claimed that after Biggie's death, Puff distanced himself from key people who were present, not just emotionally, but financially. Puff stopped working with security after they cooperated with police. But let's go deeper. What really happened inside that SUV? According to Lil Cease, who was in the car with Biggie, there were no warning signs. Just a normal LA night, girls on the corner, music playing, and then bullets.
A car just rolled up, started popping in the car. Didn't say nothing.
And when they looked over, Biggie wasn't moving. Gene Deal, who helped carry Biggie into the ER, later revealed something so gut-wrenching it silenced an entire courtroom.
Nigga, he pissed his on himself, he dead.
That moment destroyed the myth that this was just part of the game. This wasn't rap beef. This was murder for hire. And now, 27 years later, one of the men involved says he's ready to confess. So why now? Why would a man wait over 2 decades to admit to murder? Simple. He got sick of running. The anonymous hitman, who remains unnamed publicly due to ongoing witness protection protocols, filed for a plea deal in exchange for immunity from unrelated charges. In a signed affidavit obtained by internal investigators, he detailed the hit, admitted to being paid, and named Poochie as the shooter. He also named a second accomplice, a man tasked with being the lookout and clearing the path after the shooting. According to the affidavit, I was in the car. I watched Poochie raise the piece. He didn't hesitate. He said, "It's done." And we dipped. And this is where things spiral further, because that second accomplice, he's still out there. No arrest, no charges. The only reason we even know this man's name is because the hitman's confession mentioned a nickname tied to multiple club altercations in Compton, many of which were documented by police. So why haven't the authorities done anything? Simple, because the confession isn't official yet. Investigators are still vetting it, but sources say that if corroborated, it could finally lead to charges, possibly even a case against Suge Knight himself. Meanwhile, Valletta Wallace, Biggie's mother, has remained vocal. She fought the LAPD for over a decade. She even went to court multiple times to sue the department for what she called criminal negligence. She spent millions chasing justice for her son, but she never got it because the LAPD from the beginning seemed more concerned with protecting itself than finding the killer. Detective Kading said it plainly. There was a constant struggle for the family's lawsuit to even stay afloat. The LAPD refused to settle. But even with all this noise, the fans have been screaming for one thing. Who really pulled the trigger? Well, now we know, and there's more. The confessed accomplice said that this was a test run, that Biggie wasn't the only target. In fact, a second hit was being planned for another East Coast rapper, but was called off at the last minute due to too many eyes. Who was that target? We'll name them up next, because there's one more level to this conspiracy, one that ties together Death Row, the LAPD, and a secret surveillance file that has never been made public. You're about to find out what the feds knew and why they kept it buried. Feds knew, files vanished, the dark secret behind Biggie's death. This was never just about Biggie. It was about power, about silencing voices that got too loud, too rich, too influential. And it wasn't just the music industry. This rabbit hole digs deeper into the very systems that were supposed to protect Biggie, into an FBI file that went missing, into a second East Coast rapper who was marked for assassination days after Biggie's murder. Let's start with the list, because yes, there was one. According to an internal LAPD memo leaked during the Wallace family civil suit, there existed a document, an unofficial hit list, detailing targets allegedly sanctioned by individuals connected to Death Row Records. Names included Biggie Smalls, Nas, Busta Rhymes, and another artist whose name was redacted. And this wasn't speculation. This was presented in open court as part of a discovery motion during the Wallace family's lawsuit against the LAPD. FBI records and LAPD files related to the Wallace murder disappeared mysteriously. One witness, a former informant, claimed that Nas was supposed to be hit next during a scheduled West Coast tour date. The plan was scrapped when Nas canceled his appearance, citing security concerns. And just like that, the trail went cold again, until now. The man who just confessed to helping orchestrate Biggie's murder also revealed a startling twist. He was approached again months later by the same people about handling Nas. He says he backed out, that he had done his part and wanted out, but his testimony is now being evaluated by federal agents as it reopens the possibility of a coordinated campaign targeting East Coast talent. This wasn't just gang beef, this was business, territory. Because while most of the world was distracted by the glitz of MTV and Source Awards behind closed doors, West Coast moguls were feeling boxed in. Puff Daddy was exploding. Biggie had just announced Junior MAFIA's second album. Bad Boy Records was on fire, and Death Row was reeling. Suge Knight had been in prison. Tupac was dead. Dr. Dre had left. Snoop was exploring his options. There was only one way to reclaim control, instill fear. But the plan backfired. The moment Biggie died, the world didn't cower. It fought back. Valletta Wallace, armed with millions of dollars and a mother's rage, sued the LAPD. She hired private investigators. She tracked down witnesses. She forced the city into a corner. But one witness they couldn't touch, Poochie Faust. He was killed in 2003 in Compton, shot 10 times while riding his motorcycle. According to LAPD reports, the murder was gang-related, but many believe it was a cleanup job. One of the investigators working the Biggie task force at the time said the timing of Poochie's death was no coincidence. People were getting nervous about what he might say, and with Poochie gone, the trail went quiet until 2024, when the anonymous hitman came forward. And now, the floodgates are open. But what about Puff? Puff Daddy Diddy has spent decades dodging allegations, lawsuits, and rumors. Some see him as a victim of the chaos. Others whisper that he played both sides. What's undeniable is that after Biggie's death, Puff took control of the narrative. He released I'll Be Missing You. He made Bad Boy a mainstream empire. He built $1 billion brand, but those who were there say the cost was devastating.
And to see that kid go out like that, when he had so much love, man.
Gene Deal, Puff's former security, was eventually cut off, not because he failed, but because he told the truth. And that's what this has always been about, truth. Biggie was 24 years old. He left behind 2 children. His mother still wakes up every day searching for closure. And now, nearly 3 decades later, she may finally get it. So where do things stand today? Here's what we know. The hitman has confessed under oath. 2 co-conspirators were named. One is dead. The other remains free. Suge Knight's girlfriend was granted immunity in exchange for cooperation. Nas was allegedly next. And the FBI may have buried key files that would have blown this case wide open. And as for Suge, he's still locked up, and he still refuses to cooperate. When asked recently by a journalist if he knew who shot Biggie, he smirked and said, "Ask Puffy," but we've stopped asking because we finally have answers. And one final twist. Before his death, Biggie recorded one last song that never made it onto Life After Death. The track was buried by the label, too raw, too real. But in it, he reportedly referenced a black truck creeping by the club. Fans thought it was just lyrics, but maybe he knew. "I just want the truth." That's what Valletta Wallace said in a 2023 interview. And for the first time, she might have it, because the hitman who pulled the trigger, he told the world, "I didn't know him, I didn't hate him, I was just doing what I was paid to do." And now, he'll carry that ghost for the rest of his life. Did Biggie know he was being hunted? Christopher Wallace wasn't naive, he wasn't reckless, and he wasn't surprised when the bullets came. The deeper you look into his final days, the clearer it becomes. Biggie didn't just predict the danger. He lived with it. He spoke about it. He even joked about it, like a man trying to normalize his fate. And in one of his last recorded interviews, rarely used in mainstream documentaries, he laid it all out. In the March 5th, 1997 interview with the Doghouse in San Francisco, Biggie dropped several eerie comments, but one quote hit the hardest.
Somebody might try to get me. Someone might try to stick me.
The room laughed. Biggie smiled. But if you listen closely, his tone wasn't funny. He was tired, agitated. His voice dropped when he said it, because he knew. What makes this moment chilling is what followed. The host, visibly concerned, asked Biggie what had changed in the rap game, why it had become so dangerous. And Biggie, calmly, almost like he'd rehearsed it, answered,
And they did it to Jordan. They did it to Bill Cosby. They're going to attack you if you're on top.
Those words weren't metaphorical. Biggie felt he was a target, and not just from rival rappers, but from people who wanted to control his success. Because by 1997, Biggie wasn't just a rapper, he was a brand. He was working with Puffy to launch Junior Mafia, RSS' second album, expand his own clothing line, and establish his imprint under Bad Boy Records. That kind of power made him a threat, not just to Suge Knight or Tupac loyalists, but to executives, handlers, and institutions that had long controlled the industry from the shadows. And there's one interview segment, never aired nationally, that proves Biggie was watching his back for more than just bullets. When asked what advice he would give younger artists about the music business, Biggie said,
Especially if it's your money, it's only right you know everything.
He wasn't talking about lyrics. He wasn't talking about chains. He was talking about ownership, royalties, power. Biggie had begun quietly working with a private legal team to restructure his publishing deals, according to friends close to him. And this is something few fans know. Biggie wanted out of the 360 trap before the term even existed. And guess who owned a significant share of Biggie's catalog? Sean Puff Daddy Combs. Sources from within Bad Boy have since claimed Biggie was preparing to negotiate new publishing terms, including transferring creative rights over to his children's trust. And while this hasn't been publicly confirmed by Diddy or Bad Boy reps, industry insiders suggest this may have played a role in why certain tracks were withheld or buried after his death. There's even evidence of unreleased material, finished songs, that Biggie recorded in secret studio sessions with DJ Premier and Too Short.
Oh yeah, I got a song with Too Short.
But that's on the album.
But not all of them made the final track list. And then there's the Faith Evans story. Many fans know the headlines. Biggie and Faith married quickly, fought publicly, and had their share of chaos. But what few know is that in the weeks leading to his death, Biggie was trying to repair things, trying to stabilize the chaos. In the same doghouse. Interview, Biggie admitted,
That was the problem that I made. I married her, but she just had a baby for me, and we're trying to work everything out.
that wasn't just personal. That was legacy. Biggie wanted a future. He wanted time, and he didn't have any. Let's return to the final night, the party at the Peterson Automotive Museum. There's one witness account that's rarely quoted, and it's critical. Michelle, a staff member working the VIP entry desk that night, claimed Biggie was visibly anxious. She told investigators, he kept asking who was outside, who just came in, who left. He wasn't paranoid, he was watching. Michelle later said Biggie asked for extra security outside the SUV before leaving. He was reassured it was safe. He wasn't reassured, he was overruled. And here's something no one talks about. Biggie had changed hotels. Originally staying at the Four Seasons, he was moved to the Beverly Hills Hotel 2 days before the murder, reportedly because of an issue with bookings. But insiders now claim the switch came after Biggie received a threatening phone call. According to an unnamed member of his entourage, he picked up the phone, didn't say much, just nodded. After that, he wanted to move. The call was never traced. The number was unlisted, but that wasn't the only warning. Another man who knew the danger was Eugene Big Gene Deal, Puff's ex-security guard. In a separate interview not used in earlier parts of this this expose, Deal revealed, when we left that party, I was scanning every rooftop. We knew someone was out there watching, but we didn't know who. Big Gene's instincts were right, and his trauma never left him. To this day, he's haunted not just by the violence, but by the silence that followed. He said,
I hate to be like that because it's hard to come back from that.
And he never really did. So what do we make of this? Biggie knew he was being watched. He expressed fear in his final interviews. He was making moves behind the scenes to protect his legacy. And when he died, unfinished tracks, private deals, and conversations vanished with him. It wasn't just a hit, it was a silencing. So why does it matter now? Because history has a habit of lying when there are no living voices left to correct it. And Biggie's voice, though gone, left enough clues. Every lyric, every radio segment, every taped interview, he was telling us. The question is, were we listening? Christopher Wallace predicted his death. Maybe not the exact night, maybe not the exact street, but in his music, in his interviews, and in his behavior, he knew the walls were closing in. And now, 27 years later, the world is finally catching up. Not because law enforcement pushed for truth, not because the music industry demanded justice, but because of one thing: his mother never gave up. And as we sit with this new confession, with the pieces finally connecting, maybe, just maybe, Biggie can finally rest. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, click on one of the boxes playing on your screen to watch more similar content.